I thought I knew what love was after 27 years of marriage. It was a Thursday afternoon in late April, the kind of cool, breezy day where the maples along the cul-de-sac swayed lazily and kids still wore their hoodies to the bus stop. I had just left a meeting with the city inspectors for a new commercial project when I realized I was only a few blocks away from my daughter's house. My daughter, Emily, had recently moved into a colonial-style home with her husband, Tyler. He was a young attorney at Davenport and Reed, ambitious, sharp-tongued, always a little too sure of himself. Emily adored him, or at least she wanted to believe she did. I, on the other hand, had learned to tolerate his smugness at Thanksgiving dinners. That afternoon, I thought I'd surprise Emily. Maybe take her out for an early dinner, just the two of us. So, I called. "Sorry, Dad," she chirped. "I'm not home. Tyler's working on some case files, though. He should be there." I smiled. "All right, sweetheart. I'll catch you later." But as I turned onto their street, something caught my eye. Something that didn't make sense. Parked in the driveway was a shiny white Lexus RX, my wife, Laura's car. My stomach twisted. That car should have been sitting in our garage back in Maplewood Estates, not outside my daughter's house on a weekday afternoon. I slowed, pulling my black Honda into the curb across the street. My pulse picked up. Laura had told me that morning she'd be at the design studio working on proposals for a client. She managed a boutique interior design firm downtown, mostly staging homes for realtors. Nothing about her schedule included visit our son-in-law on a Thursday. I killed the engine and sat there watching. The blinds in the living room window were half open. My instincts told me not to go in. Instead, I slipped quietly out of the car, careful not to slam the door, and walked up the side of the house. Through the sliver of glass, I saw her. Laura, my wife of 27 years. She was lounging casually on the couch, shoes off, her designer handbag tossed onto Emily's armchair. Tyler stood across the room near the bookshelf, sleeves rolled up, a glass of bourbon in hand, wearing that arrogant half-smile I'd always hated. I should have knocked. I should have turned around. But something in me whispered, "Don't. Listen first." So I pressed closer to the window, heart hammering. What I heard in that moment rewrote everything I thought I knew about my life. Laura's voice low and syrupy. "When the old fool finally signs the papers, we'll have everything. The business, the house, the accounts. He won't even see it coming." Tyler chuckled, setting his drink down. "The timeline's perfect. File in June, cite irreconcilable differences. Iowa statutes guarantee you half of everything acquired during the marriage, plus alimony. He's worth what, $15 million? Between the construction company, the rentals, the lake house?" Laura laughed softly. The same laugh that once made me weak when we were dating. Now it curdled my stomach. Closer to 20, and he's never hidden a thing from me. I've been documenting for months. Bank statements, deeds, contracts. Alan practically handed me the keys. My knees buckled. I pressed my palm against the brick wall to keep from falling. Tyler leaned toward her. 2 years of pretending, of smiling through his boring dinner stories, of nodding along while he rambled about payroll and job sites. It's finally paying off. And then Laura said the words that shattered me completely. "God, the man actually believes I love him." The glass in my chest cracked. My throat went dry. 27 years of marriage reduced to a strategy session in my daughter's living room. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers, tapped the record button, and slid it discreetly against the window frame. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. They kept talking, dissecting my assets, discussing how Emily could be manipulated into siding with them, even mocking the way I'd worked 16-hour days to build the empire they planned to divide. Then, snap. A twig under my shoe. Their heads whipped toward the window. "Did you hear that?" Laura's voice sharpened, eyes narrowing. "Probably the neighbor's cat," Tyler muttered, though his expression betrayed unease. "Relax. He won't find out until September." But I had heard enough. My legs carried me back to the car, lungs burning, chest tight. I sat there gripping the steering wheel, staring at the same hands that had built every brick of Colton construction, the same hands that walked Laura down the aisle when her father refused, hands that had trusted her, loved her, provided for her. And now those same hands were shaking uncontrollably as she plotted to ruin me with my own son-in-law. I don't remember starting the engine. I don't remember the drive home. Only the words echoing in my skull. The man actually believes I love him. For 27 years, I had. That night, when the front door opened and Laura walked in, radiant as always, adjusting her pearl necklace like nothing had happened, I forced a smile. She kissed my cheek. "Long day?" I swallowed the rage rising in my throat. The longest. Because she didn't know. She didn't know about the recording on my phone. 40 minutes of venomous betrayal. She thought she was playing chess with a fool. She had no idea the game had just changed. I barely slept that night. The sound of Laura's steady breathing beside me, once a comfort, now grated like nails across glass. I lay there staring at the ceiling fan, the shadows cutting across the room, listening to the faint hum of our sub-zero fridge in the kitchen down the hall. I'd built this house 20 years ago. Every board, every beam, every damn detail had been for her. The mahogany staircase she insisted on. The stone fireplace where she loved to hang our Christmas stockings. Even the fountain in the front yard that cost more to maintain than a used Toyota. It wasn't just a house. It was my love letter. And now I realized the recipient had been an actress the entire time. At 4 a.m, I slid out of bed, careful not to wake her. My home office sat at the far end of the hallway. I shut the door, turned on the lamp, and laid my phone on the desk. The recording app still sat open, that red waveform like a scar across the screen. 43 minutes of my life reduced to poison. I pressed play again. Tyler's smug tone filled the room. "With Iowa's statutes, you'll walk away with lifetime spousal support. He'll fight, but we'll bury him in paperwork." Laura's laugh followed, delicate and cold. "Alan still thinks I care about his stupid buildings. The man's obsessed with concrete. Let him. All I have to do is smile and nod." My knuckles whitened against the desk. For 27 years, I thought her smile was real. I first met Laura at a charity fundraiser hosted by the Rotary Club in Cedar Falls. I was 37, single, and exhausted from working double shifts to get Colton construction off the ground. She was 24, working as a secretary at a real estate office, young, magnetic, her laughter rising above the clinking of glasses. I remember spilling red wine on my tie, and she handed me a napkin with a smile that could have lit the room. "You look like you've been fighting a war," she teased. "Construction will do that to a man," I said. She tilted her head, studying me. "Or maybe you just need someone to make you laugh." And she did. That night, She laughed at my terrible jokes about drywall and zoning codes. We talked until the band packed up. When I asked her to dinner the next week, she said yes without hesitation. 6 months later, we were engaged. Back in the present, I gripped the edge of the desk until my hands ached. Had she been planning even then, or had she just changed? I thought about all the sacrifices, missing vacations, working through weekends, saying no to fishing trips with buddies, because I believed I was building something for us, for her, for Emily. But now I was the fool. The next day at the office, I put on my best mask. My crew couldn't know. Colton Construction was in the middle of bidding on a $40 million municipal project, and I couldn't afford to look rattled. But behind closed doors, I called Marcus Webb, my accountant, my oldest friend, the man who'd helped me navigate 3 recessions and 2 IRS audits. He answered on the second ring. "Alan, you sound like hell." "Marcus," I said, steadying my voice, "I need you to pull the offshore files, the ones we set up after the 08 crash. Every record, every account." A pause. "Why? Those are airtight, invisible. What's going on?" "I'll explain later. Just get me everything. And Marcus, don't breathe a word to anyone, not even your wife." His tone sharpened. "Alan, what the hell happened? Let's just say the woman I married isn't who I thought she was." Silence stretched for a beat. "I'll have the files by tonight." That evening, Laura breezed into the kitchen with grocery bags dangling from her manicured hands. She kissed my cheek as if nothing in the world were wrong. "Ran into Susan at the country club," she said, pulling out imported cheeses and a bottle of Chardonnay. "We should schedule a dinner with the Pattersons next week. Oh, and I'm thinking of redesigning the living room. Maybe new drapes?" Her voice floated, casual, affectionate. She was good. Too good. I poured myself a whiskey, nodding like the dutiful husband. "Whatever makes you happy." Because for the first time in 27 years, I wasn't listening to her words. I was listening for lies. December 12th, 1995. The church smelled of pine wreaths and candle wax. Laura walked down the aisle in ivory silk, clutching roses. I remember her father refusing to attend, said I was too old, too ambitious, that she deserved a man who wouldn't bury himself in work. But Laura hadn't cared. Or at least, she pretended not to. When the pastor pronounced us husband and wife, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes and whispered, "Thank you for giving me a future." And like a damn fool, I believed her. 2 weeks after discovering the betrayal, I began compiling evidence. Bank statements, property deeds, loan agreements, all cross-checked against Laura's movements. And every time she left the room for a phone call, I hit record. My office became a war room. 2 laptops open, spreadsheets covering my desk, legal pads filled with columns, assets, timeline, weaknesses. One name appeared again and again. Tyler, Emily's husband. The boy I'd toasted at their wedding 5 years ago, telling him, "Take care of her, or you'll answer to me." And now he was sleeping with my wife, plotting to dismantle my empire. The betrayal burned deeper than money, deeper than property. This was personal. That Sunday, we hosted family dinner. Emily arrived with her usual brightness, carrying a pecan pie. Tyler followed, smooth as ever in a tailored blazer. Laura set the table, humming to herself like nothing was wrong. We ate roast chicken and potatoes while Tyler talked about his firm's latest cases. Laura laughed at his jokes, her hand brushing his when she refilled his wine. My blood boiled, but I smiled. Emily noticed. She glanced at me, brow furrowed, sensing tension. "Dad, you okay?" I forced a chuckle. "Just tired. Long week." But I watched. Every glance, every touch, every hidden signal between them. After dinner, as Tyler helped Laura clear the plates, I slipped out to the porch with Emily. She leaned on the railing, her breath visible in the cool spring air. "Something's off with Mom and with Tyler. You feel it too, don't you?" I kept my eyes on the yard, the oak trees swaying in the breeze. "Why do you say that?" "Tyler asks weird questions about your business. Mom seems distracted. I don't know. I can't explain it." I put a hand on her shoulder, forcing calm. "Don't worry about it, sweetheart. Focus on yourself. Let me carry the heavy stuff." She nodded, though suspicion lingered in her eyes. And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for her, too. For the truth. That night, after Emily and Tyler left, Laura leaned against the doorway in her silk robe, smiling like a cat that had just licked the cream. "You were quiet tonight," she said softly. I raised my glass. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About the house we built. About how strong the foundations are." Her smile faltered for just a second, and I realized then the game had truly begun. By Monday morning, my decision was made. I wasn't going to wait for Laura and Tyler to strike first. I'd spent too many years fighting city contracts, negotiating with unions, and surviving recessions to let my own wife and son-in-law blindside me. If they thought I was the kind of man who wouldn't notice the board shifting beneath him, they were about to learn who they were playing against. I arrived at the office before sunrise, the parking lot still empty, the air smelling faintly of spring rain. My office overlooked the downtown square, a view I'd earned after decades of starting in basements and rented warehouses. I sat at my mahogany desk, phone in hand, and dialed Marcus. He answered with a yawn. "You've been up all night again, haven't you?" "Listen carefully," I said. "I need all joint accounts frozen. Every line of credit, every automatic payment system, every linked card, effective immediately." A pause. "Alan, that'll lock Laura out completely. She'll know something's up." "That's the point," I said flatly. "Make it look like a routine security review if she asks. But I want her standing at a checkout line with her card declined. I want her to feel the floor shifting." Marcus exhaled. "This is war, isn't it?" "No," I corrected. "This is defense. War comes later." The banking officer, Tom Bradley, my golf partner for 15 years, slid a stack of forms across the conference table. "Alan," he said carefully, "I've known you long enough to know when something's wrong. Freezing every joint asset is drastic." "Then consider this estate planning," I said, signing the papers with steady hands. "Temporary holds until further notice." Tom leaned back, studying me. "Does Laura know?" "She'll find out soon enough." His lips pressed into a thin line, but he didn't argue. He knew me well enough to trust my reasons, even if he didn't know the whole story. By 11:47 a.m., every account Laura could touch was locked down. The digital keys to 27 years of comfort had just evaporated. 12:03 p.m. My phone buzzed. Text from Laura. "Alan, Something's wrong with our cards. I tried paying for lunch at the club, and it declined. Call me. I stared at the screen, whiskey-bitter satisfaction spreading in my chest. 5 minutes later, she called. Her voice was sharp, panicked. Alan, the bank says there's a security hold. I'm sitting here with Linda and Susan, and I can't even pay for my salad. Do you know anything about this? I made my tone smooth, innocent. Security hold? That sounds serious. I'll call Tom and check. Must be a glitch. She huffed. Well, fix it. It's humiliating. Of course, sweetheart, I said calmly. I'll take care of it. But I had no intention of fixing anything. At 4:30, Marcus called back, his voice tight. You were right, he said. Tyler tried to access a joint account with Laura's name. 3 times. Then he went after what looked like a trust fund tied to Emily's name. All blocked. My jaw clenched. So he's been funneling through her. Alan, Marcus said, this isn't just betrayal. This is criminal. He's crossing lines that'll get him disbarred. Good, I muttered. Let him dig his own grave. That night, I poured myself a bourbon and waited in the kitchen. At 6:52 p.m., Laura walked in, her heels clicking across the tile. Her face was carefully composed, but her eyes flashed. All our accounts are frozen, she snapped, dropping her purse on the counter. The bank says we have to appear in person with photo ID. What the hell is going on? I sipped my drink, feigning surprise. Strange. Must be new security protocols. Banks are cracking down lately. Alan, don't play dumb, she hissed. I couldn't even buy gas today. I shrugged. I'll talk to Tom tomorrow. It'll sort itself out. Her nostrils flared. She hated losing control. For years, she'd strutted through Riverside Country Club in designer dresses bought with my sweat. Now, for the first time, she couldn't swipe her way out of a problem. I thought about our 25th anniversary just a few months earlier. Laura had handed me a handwritten card in blue ink. To my wonderful husband. Thank you for making all my dreams come true. Here's to 25 more years of happiness. All my love, Laura. I'd kept that card on my desk for weeks, letting the words comfort me during long nights. Now those same words tasted like poison. All her love, or at least, all her performance. The following day, I met with Mike Rodriguez, a private investigator I'd used before for vetting subcontractors. He was ex-cop, lean, quiet, the kind of man who noticed details everyone else missed. I slid a manila folder across the diner booth. I need you to follow my wife and my son-in-law, discreetly. I want phone logs, meeting places, everything. Mike raised a brow. You think she's cheating? I don't think, I said coldly. I know, and it's worse than that. They're planning to gut me. He whistled low. That's ugly. Can you handle it? Mike nodded once. You'll have your first report by the end of the week. That evening, I returned home to Laura already cooking dinner, humming softly as though nothing was wrong. She plated grilled salmon and asparagus, poured me a glass of red. How was work? She asked sweetly. Productive, I replied. She smiled like the actress she was, but I caught it now. The faint hesitation before her eyes met mine, the flicker of calculation behind her charm. I wondered how many times I'd mistaken that calculation for love. When Emily was born, Laura had clutched my hand in the hospital bed, tears streaming down her face. She's perfect, she whispered, cradling our red-faced daughter. That night, As I held Emily for the first time, Laura looked at me and said, "You're the best father in the world." I believed her then. Believed we were a family. Now I realized, maybe the only genuine thing Laura ever gave me was Emily. After dinner, Laura leaned across the counter, wine glass in hand. "You've been distant," she said softly. "Is something wrong?" I forced a smile. "Just work stress." She touched my arm, nails polished, expression tender. "Don't shut me out, Alan. We've been through too much." The hypocrisy almost made me laugh, but I stayed silent, because I wasn't shutting her out. I was building a cage she wouldn't see until it slammed shut. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling again, my phone buzzed. A message from Mike Rodriguez. "Tyler and Laura met at his office tonight. Closed-door meeting. Left separately an hour later." Body language suggested tension. "I'll have audio soon." I set the phone down, my pulse steady. They thought they were accelerating their plan. What they didn't know was that I had already moved my first piece, and soon I'd take their queen. The report from Mike Rodriguez landed on my desk Thursday morning, and it was everything I'd expected, plus worse. Photos of Laura leaving Tyler's office after hours. Receipts from a spa she'd charged on a joint account, always coinciding with her so-called book club nights. And then there were the phone logs, late-night calls multiple times a week, always between her and Tyler. I flipped through the evidence slowly, jaw tight. Each page was another brick in the wall of betrayal. But the audio file was the crown jewel. Dan's smug voice filled the room, captured by Mike's parabolic mic outside the open window of Tyler's office. "Margaret, we need to assume Alan knows more than he's letting on. He's freezing accounts, cutting you off. Classic financial abuse tactics." Laura's voice brittle. "He's never done this before. He must have overheard something that day at Emily's house." "Then we reframe it," Tyler replied smoothly. "You become the victim. He's the controlling husband. Every gift, every joint account, every time he paid a bill, you spin it as manipulation, dependency, intimidation." My chest burned as I listened. They were weaponizing 27 years of my sacrifice, twisting generosity into control, love into abuse. By Friday, I was sitting across from James Morrison, an old friend from the Chamber of Commerce and one of the sharpest divorce attorneys in the state. He adjusted his glasses as I slid the recorder across his polished oak desk. "What's this?" "Proof," I said. He hit play. For 43 minutes, the office filled with Laura's laughter, Tyler's legal strategy, their voices dripping with contempt. When the recording ended, James leaned back in his chair, lips pursed. "Alan, this is devastating." "Tell me how bad." "For them, very. For you, it could save everything. This isn't just adultery. This is conspiracy, fraud, potential perjury if they try to frame you with abuse claims. Judges hate liars more than cheaters." I exhaled, tension easing slightly. "So what's the play?" "We wait. Let them file. They'll overreach, claim abuse, demand assets. And then..." He tapped the recorder with his pen. "We drop this bomb." For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of control. I thought of Emily's wedding 5 years earlier, the barn strung with fairy lights, the scent of lavender from the fields nearby. Laura had cried through the ceremony, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief. She clutched my arm as we watched Emily and Tyler share their first dance. "She's so happy," Laura whispered. "So are you," I'd said, kissing her temple. If only I'd known the man twirling my daughter on the dance floor would one day sit in a law office, plotting with my wife to ruin me. That weekend, Laura shifted her strategy. She cooked breakfast Saturday morning, something she hadn't done in years. Pancakes, bacon, fresh squeezed orange juice, the whole production. "You've been so stressed," she said sweetly as she set the plate in front of me. "I thought I'd take care of you today." I forced a smile, cutting into the pancakes. "That's thoughtful." Inside, I cataloged every move, every smile, every gentle touch of her hand on mine was rehearsed, calculated. She was laying groundwork for her victim narrative, preparing to tell the world she was the caring wife married to a cold, controlling man. But I wasn't cold. I was focused. Sunday evening, Mike sent another update. "Your son-in-law's not as steady as he pretends," he said, sliding into the booth across from me at a quiet diner off I-80. "He's drowning in debt. Student loans, office rent, late payments to subcontractors. And the state bar has 2 complaints pending against him. He's 1 bad month away from collapse." I leaned back, considering. So that's why he's desperate. Exactly. Marrying your daughter gave him social credibility. Sleeping with your wife gave him leverage. But he's sloppy. He owes too many people too much money. Guys like him always implode. I sipped my coffee, staring into the dark liquid. Good. Let him implode. I'll give him a little push. That night, Emily joined us for dinner. Tyler arrived late. His tie loosened, the smell of whiskey faint on his breath. We sat around the oak dining table I'd built with my own hands, the same table where Emily had done homework as a child. "So, Dad," Emily said between bites of roast chicken, "Tyler's firm is expanding into real estate litigation. He was telling me about asset division cases. It's fascinating stuff." I glanced at him. He smirked, sipping his wine. "Asset division is complicated," I said evenly, "especially when people forget where the assets came from in the first place." Laura shifted uncomfortably, setting down her fork. Tyler's smile faltered, just for a second. Emily frowned. "Is something going on?" Laura forced a laugh. "Your father's just tired. Long week." But Emily's eyes lingered on me, suspicious. She was sharper than they realized. I remembered Christmas mornings when Emily was little. Laura in a red robe, Emily tearing through wrapping paper, laughter filling the house. I'd sit by the fire, coffee in hand, watching the 2 of them, believing I'd built a family worth every sacrifice. Those memories still hurt, but now they gave me fuel. Because the same woman who'd kissed me under mistletoe was now plotting to paint me as an abuser, and I would not let her rewrite our history with lies. Laura was already dressed when I came downstairs, her navy dress sharp, her pearl earrings glinting. "Big day," she said casually, sipping her latte. "Client meetings all morning. Don't wait up for dinner. I'll probably be late." She kissed my cheek, perfume lingering in the air, and left. I knew exactly where she was going. By 9 a.m., Mike texted. Laura meeting Tyler at his office. Documents on the table. Heated conversation. By 11, another text. They're drafting a petition. Emergency divorce proceedings. Citing financial abuse. The words hit like a sledgehammer. So it was happening. They were going all in. That afternoon, I drove to James Morrison's office, the recorder heavy in my pocket. "They're filing," I said as soon as I walked in. James nodded. "Let them. We want them to commit perjury on paper. Once they file those claims, your recording doesn't just prove adultery, it proves fraud. Judges love catching liars." I sat down, the weight of weeks lifting slightly. "So when they accuse me of abuse, we flip it," James said firmly. "We show the evidence. Their affair, their financial scheme, their intent to frame you. Alan, you're not the defendant in this story. You're the plaintiff, the one betrayed." For the first time since I saw that Lexus in Emily's driveway, I felt something like hope. Not joy, not relief, but clarity. They thought they were writing my downfall, but I held the pen. The summons arrived on a Wednesday morning. A courier in a gray suit walked into my office and dropped the envelope on my desk with the efficiency of a man delivering bad news for a living. "Mr. Cole?" he asked. "Yes." "You've been served." He was gone before I could reply. I stared at the cream-colored envelope, my name typed neatly across the front. The weight of it felt heavier than steel. With a deep breath, I slid it open. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Emergency motion for spousal support. Temporary restraining order. The words swam in front of me. Laura's accusations were laid out in cold legal language, crafted with Tyler's precise lawyer's hand. Financial abuse. Claiming I had systematically cut her off from funds to intimidate her. Emotional manipulation. Alleging I had used my role as provider to control her behavior. Intimidation. Suggesting I was threatening to leave her with nothing. There it was, in black and white, the script they'd rehearsed. They were painting me as an abuser. By noon, I was back in James Morrison's office, the petition spread across his desk. He skimmed it quickly, his mouth tightening. "Classic smear play," he muttered. "They've gone nuclear right out of the gate." "What's the damage?" I asked. "Temporary restraining orders are dangerous," James said grimly. "If granted, they could freeze your ability to manage certain assets or even restrict contact with Laura. Tyler's banking on you panicking and settling." "Not happening," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. James leaned back, tapping the petition. "Good. Because they've overplayed. These claims are broad, vague, and unsupported. If they try this in front of Judge Hendricks, we'll have an opening." I slid the recorder across the table. "Then let's make sure that opening swallows them whole." That night, sitting alone in my living room, I thought about our 10th anniversary cruise to Alaska. Laura had stood on the deck in a red coat, marveling at the glaciers. "I can't believe you did this for us," she'd whispered, kissing me under the northern lights. For years, that memory had been one of my favorites. Now it was just another scene in her performance. How many of those smiles, those touches, those whispered "I love yous" had been rehearsed lines? Friday morning, the courthouse smelled faintly of bleach and coffee. Families shuffled nervously in and out of the domestic relations courtroom, clutching folders and whispering to attorneys. I sat at the defendant's table beside James, my navy suit pressed, my tie perfect. Across the aisle, Laura sat with Tyler at her side. She wore a conservative navy dress, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. She looked every inch the trembling wife she wanted the judge to see. When Judge Hendricks entered, the room quieted. She was sharp-eyed, silver-haired, known for cutting through lies with surgical precision. "Mrs. Cole," the judge began, "you've petitioned for emergency relief. Explain your request." Laura's voice trembled just enough. "Your Honor, My husband has been restricting my access to our finances. I couldn't even buy food last week. He's become controlling, unpredictable. I fear for my security." Tyler leaned forward. "Your Honor, this is a textbook case of financial abuse. Mr. Cole has systematically isolated my client, leaving her dependent and vulnerable." Every word was a dagger aimed at my chest. James rose slowly. "Your Honor, may I respond?" The judge nodded. James clasped his hands behind his back, his voice calm, deliberate. "Mr. Cole does not deny that certain accounts were frozen. What Mrs. Cole fails to mention is why. With the court's permission, we would like to introduce an audio recording that sheds light on the true nature of this case." Laura's head snapped toward me, her face blanching. Tyler stiffened. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." James pressed play. Laura's voice filled the courtroom speakers, dripping with disdain. "When the old fool finally signs the papers, we'll have everything we planned for." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Then Tyler's crisp, lawyerly tone. "File in June. Claim irreconcilable differences. With the statutes, Margaret's entitled to half plus spousal support for life." The judge's expression hardened. And then Laura again, cruel and laughing. "God, the man actually believes I love him." The room went silent. James stopped the playback. "Your Honor, what you just heard was not the voice of a woman in fear. It was the voice of a woman conspiring with her son-in-law, who also happens to be her attorney, to defraud her husband of marital assets through false claims. The accounts were frozen to prevent theft, not to intimidate." The judge leaned forward. "Mrs. Cole, Mr. Thompson, do either of you wish to respond?" Laura's mouth opened and closed. Tyler's jaw worked, but no sound came out. For the first time, I watched their masks crack. The judge didn't rule immediately. She rarely did. But as she adjourned, she gave Laura and Tyler a long, cutting look. "I am reserving judgment pending review of the evidence. In the meantime, Mr. Cole's financial measures will stand. Petition for emergency support is denied." Denied. It wasn't a victory yet, but it was the first swing that landed. As the gavel struck, Laura's face twisted. Anger, fear, calculation. Tyler leaned close, whispering furiously. They gathered their papers in silence. I stood slowly, adjusting my cufflinks. My pulse was steady, my voice calm when I leaned toward James. "They thought they'd bury me in lies," I murmured. "Now they're the ones standing in the open." Driving home, I thought of Emily's college graduation. Laura had cried that day too, holding my hand as we watched our daughter walk across the stage. "She's going to do incredible things because of you," she'd said. Back then, I believed it was us. Now I knew. It had always been me. That evening, Laura returned home late. She didn't speak as she moved through the kitchen, heels clicking on the tile, slamming a cabinet harder than necessary. Finally, she turned, eyes flashing. "How long have you been recording me?" I took a slow sip of whiskey. "Long enough." Her hands trembled as she gripped the counter. For the first time, I saw it. The fear. Not fear of me. Fear of exposure. The silence in our house that night felt different. Not the comfortable quiet of a long marriage, where you know each other's rhythms and words aren't needed. This silence was sharp, jagged, the kind that slices when you breathe. Laura moved around the kitchen with deliberate precision, pouring wine, rearranging plates, every gesture tight with suppressed rage. Finally, she turned. "You humiliated me in court." I set my glass on the counter, my voice calm. "No, Laura. You humiliated yourself. I just pressed play." Her eyes narrowed. "You don't understand. You've always been blind. Blind to me. Blind to what I wanted." I leaned back in my chair, studying her. 27 years, Laura. The house, the vacations, the cars, the country club. Tell me, what exactly was it you wanted that you didn't already have? Her lips trembled, but she forced a smirk. "Freedom. Respect. You've built this empire for yourself, Alan. You never built it for me." That was the moment I realized. She wasn't ashamed. She was rewriting history in her head, turning herself into the victim to justify the betrayal. I stood, pushing back the chair. "Then maybe the only thing you'll walk away with is that freedom you crave. Let's see how much you enjoy it, without the millions you were planning to steal." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. She just sipped her wine and turned away, her reflection fractured in the kitchen window. By Saturday, word had spread. Riverside Country Club, where Laura once held court with the other wives, buzzed with whispers. Linda Patterson, her closest friend, avoided her entirely. At brunch, Susan Morrison suddenly remembered an urgent phone call the moment Laura sat down. By the time she reached the hostess stand, she understood. The social doors were closing. Fast. I knew because Mike Rodriguez had men everywhere. Bartenders, staff, even a valet who overheard Laura muttering into her phone. "They're turning on me, Tyler. Everyone knows." Meanwhile, at Cole Construction, support poured in. Subcontractors who'd worked with me for decades shook my hand, offering quiet words. "Heard what they tried to pull." "You did." "Right, Alan." 35 years of honest business was paying dividends. My reputation held firm. Theirs was crumbling. Monday morning, James Morrison called with a tone that almost sounded like satisfaction. "Alan, you'll like this," he said. "The State Bar Association just escalated their investigation into Tyler Thompson. Multiple subcontractors have filed complaints. Trust account violations, misuse of client funds. He's facing a formal hearing next month." I couldn't help the bitter smile that tugged at my lips. Karma finally punched his ticket. James chuckled. "More like you handed her the ticket." By noon, I had calls from 3 contractors: Chen Plumbing, Foster Roofing, Martinez Electrical, all furious at Tyler for unpaid invoices. I connected them with the Bar Association myself. Let the record show his corruption in black and white. That evening, I sat on the porch with a bourbon, watching the sun sink over the manicured lawn Laura once demanded. My phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Tyler's losing clients. 2 terminated contracts this week. Reputations shot." The son-in-law who once strutted around Thanksgiving dinner with smug superiority was now circling the drain. I remembered Thanksgiving 5 years earlier, Emily's first holiday as a married woman. Tyler had carved the turkey, charming the room with his lawyer jokes, his polished grin. Laura had laughed at everything he said, touching his arm more than once. I'd written it off as wine and holiday cheer. Now I replayed that memory with new eyes. Maybe the affair hadn't started yet, but the seed was planted, and Laura watered it. The hardest part was Emily. One evening she came by unannounced, her expression tense. "Dad, I need to know the truth." We sat in my office, the shelves lined with files and blueprints, The same office where I'd planned every building Cole Construction ever raised. She folded her hands, her voice steady but pained. Mom says you're controlling, that you've been manipulating her for years. Tyler says you cut her off financially to punish her. I swallowed hard. And what do you believe? Her eyes, so much like Laura's but clearer, searched mine. I don't know. You've never been like that with me. But everything feels twisted. I reached for my phone, hesitated, then pressed play. Laura's voice filled the office. 2 years of pretending to be the devoted wife. God, the man actually believes I love him. Emily's face went pale. She listened, silent, as Tyler's strategy unfolded, as her mother mocked the marriage she'd grown up admiring. When it ended, Emily's hands trembled. So it's true. They're together. And they planned this? Yes. My throat tightened. I didn't want you to hear it. But you needed to know. Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away. Then my marriage is over too. Her words cut deeper than anything Laura or Tyler had said. Days turned into weeks, each one tightening the noose around Laura and Tyler. Laura stopped attending social events. The women who once envied her designer handbags now whispered behind her back, their husbands warning them not to get too close. Tyler's law office, once bustling, grew quiet. Clients dropped him. His name surfaced in local news. Attorney under investigation for misuse of client funds. And me? I stayed steady, showed up at the construction sites, met payroll, signed new contracts. I was the same man I'd always been, except now, I was armed with clarity. I remembered the fountain Laura insisted on for our 20th anniversary. It'll be the centerpiece, Vas, she said, her eyes sparkling as she flipped through catalogs. It cost $50,000. I installed it anyway, because her happiness mattered more than the number. Now the fountain still burbled in the driveway. But Laura didn't sit by it anymore. She drove past with her head low, shame cutting deeper than any of my words could. One night, close to midnight, the phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but the number was Laura's. Her voice was small, cracked. Alan, I can't do this. Everyone's turned on me. He's drowning. Maybe we made a mistake. For a moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. You didn't make a mistake, Laura, I said quietly. You made a choice, now you live with it. There was silence. Then a soft click as she hung up. The next morning, James called. They're not backing down, he warned. Tyler's filing a new motion, accusing you of harassment, intimidation, even stalking. They're desperate, Alan. That makes them dangerous. I stared out my office window, watching workers pour concrete into a new foundation. They want war, I said, voice steady. Then I'll give them war. Because now, I wasn't just defending what I'd built. I was preparing to dismantle everything they'd tried to steal, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of their scheme but ashes. The courthouse steps felt colder that morning. News cameras weren't outside, not yet, but whispers had spread. Davenport was a small enough city that scandals traveled faster than the river running through it. Everyone knew Laura had filed. Everyone knew Tyler was her attorney. And everyone knew something ugly was brewing. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. I took my place at the defendant's table again, James Morrison by my side. He looked calm, collected, the way only a lawyer with 30 years of courtroom scars could. Across the aisle, Laura sat in her tailored black dress, hair tied back to give the illusion of modesty. Tyler leaned close, whispering strategy. His jaw was tight, his eyes bloodshot. He hadn't been sleeping. I recognized that look. Desperation. Judge Hendricks entered, her gaze sharp, the gavel cracking like a gunshot. This court will hear the matter of Laura Cole versus Alan Cole. Tyler rose first, papers in hand. His voice carried that courtroom polish he loved to flaunt. Your Honor, this case is about control. My client has endured years of emotional manipulation. She was financially isolated, her access to accounts restricted, her independence stripped away. And when she finally sought freedom, Mr. Cole retaliated by freezing all assets, leaving her humiliated and unable to even buy groceries. Laura nodded, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, a performance worthy of an Oscar. Tyler pressed on. We are asking for immediate spousal support, exclusive occupancy of the marital home, and protective orders to prevent further harassment. Protective orders. They wanted to paint me as dangerous, unhinged. Judge Hendricks scribbled notes. Then her eyes shifted. Mr. Morrison, your response? James stood slowly, adjusting his tie. Your Honor, the allegations presented are not only exaggerated, they are deliberately false. This is not the story of an abused wife. It is the story of a conspiracy. He pressed play. The recording filled the courtroom once again, but this time James let it run longer. Tyler's voice was unmistakable. By September, you'll be divorced, wealthy, and free. We'll claim abuse, spin every act of generosity into control. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Even the bailiff's eyes flicked up in surprise. James paused the playback. Your Honor, these are not the words of a frightened wife. These are the words of two conspirators fabricating abuse claims for financial gain. The judge leaned forward, her expression unreadable. Do you have corroborating evidence? James smiled faintly. We do. Bank statements showing unauthorized transfers to accounts under Mr. Thompson's name, credit card charges aligning with their meetings, and a private investigator's testimony placing them together repeatedly under suspicious circumstances. He handed a binder to the clerk. Exhibit B. Laura's composure cracked. He's twisting everything, she blurted, her voice rising. That recording, he spliced it. Mrs. Cole, the judge snapped, you will remain silent until addressed. Laura sank back, her face flushed. Tyler touched her arm, whispering furiously, but the damage was done. The courtroom had seen the mask slip. Then came the hardest part. James called our next witness. Emily Thompson. My daughter walked to the stand, her heels clicking softly on the tile. She wore a simple navy blouse, no jewelry, her face calm but pale. She raised her hand, swore the oath, and sat down. James approached gently. Emily, you are both the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Cole, and the wife of Mr. Thompson. Is that correct? Yes. Her voice was steady. James nodded. I know this is difficult. Did your mother or husband ever speak to you about Mr. Cole's finances? Emily glanced briefly at Laura, then back at James. Yes, they asked me questions about the company structure, who controlled assets, how accounts were managed. It didn't feel like casual curiosity. It felt like they were fishing. A murmur spread through the courtroom. James leaned closer. And did your mother ever tell you your father was abusive? Emily's voice softened, but her words were clear. Yes. She said he was controlling. But when I asked for examples, she couldn't give me any. She wanted me to use my psychology training to support her claims. I refused. My chest tightened. Hearing her say it aloud, hearing her choose truth, was a weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. James smiled gently. Thank you, Emily. No further questions. Tyler stood, his face strained. Emily, isn't it true your father froze accounts without telling your mother? Yes, she said firmly. But I now understand why. He was protecting assets from the two of you. The gallery gasped again. Tyler faltered, his jaw clenching. No further questions. As Emily stepped down, I thought of the photo still sitting on our mantel at home. Me in a rented tux, Laura in ivory silk, her smile radiant. Emily wasn't even born yet. That picture had represented everything I thought was real. Now, it was just a reminder of how easily masks can be worn. When the witnesses were finished, Judge Hendricks removed her glasses, setting them on the bench with deliberate care. I've presided over family court for 20 years, she said slowly. I've seen every form of deception, but rarely have I seen a scheme this brazen. Laura stiffened. Tyler swallowed hard. The judge continued. The evidence presented strongly suggests collusion between Mrs. Cole and Mr. Thompson. The petition for emergency support is not only denied, it appears to have been filed in bad faith. I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential perjury charges. The gavel cracked, and just like that, their last gambit shattered. As the courtroom emptied, Laura sat frozen, her face pale, eyes darting wildly. Tyler gathered papers with shaking hands, his polished courtroom swagger gone. I stood slowly, buttoning my suit jacket, every movement deliberate. Emily approached, her hand brushing mine briefly. I'm proud of you, Dad, she whispered. That was the victory. Not the financial safeguards, not the legal maneuvers, her words, her choice. Laura saw it too, and in that moment, the woman who once ruled our home with laughter and charm realized she had lost more than money. She had lost her daughter. That evening, I returned to the house I'd built with my own hands. The fountain still burbled in the driveway. The lights still glowed warm across the stone. But inside, the rooms felt different. Lighter, honest. Laura hadn't come home. Maybe she never would again. I poured myself a bourbon and sat by the fire, watching the flames dance. The war wasn't fully over. The divorce settlement still loomed. Reputations still needed repair. But the battlefield had shifted. They had tried to destroy me with lies. Instead, they'd destroyed themselves. 2 weeks after the courtroom showdown, the divorce settlement was finalized. The judge's ruling was decisive. Laura's recorded conspiracy stripped her of any claim to spousal support. The prenuptial agreement she'd signed all those years ago, something she probably forgot in her arrogance, limited her to a modest portion of marital assets. What she thought would be $20 million turned into little more than a few $100,000. Enough to live, but nowhere near the empire she planned to steal. As for Tyler, the state bar moved faster than I'd expected. His hearing revealed a string of trust account violations, contractor payments rerouted into his personal checking account, office expenses billed against client funds. When the evidence was laid bare, his license wasn't just suspended, It was revoked. Permanently. The man who once strutted through my home, full of legal bravado, left the hearing with his briefcase dangling loosely in his hand, looking more like a child than a lawyer. Word spread quickly. Riverside Country Club quietly revoked Laura's membership. The charity boards she'd chaired replaced her overnight. Friends stopped returning her calls. By summer, she'd moved into a modest townhouse on the edge of town, far from the manicured lawns she used to boast about. Mike Rodriguez told me she'd taken a job at a retail boutique in the mall. The same mall where she used to burn through my credit card on handbags and jewelry. The irony wasn't lost on me. One evening, as I drove past the strip mall on my way home, I caught a glimpse of her through the store window, arranging displays under harsh fluorescent lights, shoulders slumped. For a brief moment, I almost pitied her. Almost. But then I remembered the Lexus in Emily's driveway, the mocking laughter, the betrayal planned over glasses of bourbon. Pity dissolved. Laura had chosen her path. Tyler's collapse was faster, harsher. Without his license, he couldn't practice law. His debts caught up with him quickly. Creditors circled. His office lease was terminated. Emily filed for divorce within weeks of the hearing. I didn't push her to do it. It was her decision. But when she came to me, voice steady, papers in hand, I knew she'd found the strength her mother had tried to twist. "I can't build a life on lies," she said simply. Tyler left town not long after. Last I heard, he was working as a paralegal in Nebraska, stripped of the title he'd once wielded like a sword. The son-in-law who thought he could outmaneuver me ended up in exile, his arrogance reduced to ashes. One night, as I cleaned my study, I found the old wedding photo. Me in that rented tux, Laura in ivory silk, smiling like the world was at her feet. For years, I'd kept it on the mantle as a symbol of everything we'd built together. Now, I slid it into a drawer, not out of anger, not even out of sorrow, but because it no longer represented the truth. The truth was Emily, the daughter who stood beside me when everything else fell apart. Life quieted. The house felt emptier without Laura's voice echoing off the walls, but it also felt honest. For the first time in years, I didn't question whether words were genuine or rehearsed. Emily visited often. We'd sit on the back porch, grilling steaks, laughing about old times. Sometimes she'd bring friends from her clinic, young therapists who reminded me of her strength. One evening she asked, "Do you ever regret it, Dad? Marrying Mom?" I sipped my bourbon, considering. "No," I said finally, "because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have you, and you're the best thing I ever built." Her eyes glistened, but she smiled. The betrayal had threatened to tarnish my reputation, but instead it did the opposite. Contractors, city officials, even rival builders offered respect. "You handled it with dignity," one councilman told me. "Most men would have exploded. You stayed steady." Steady. That word mattered more than any settlement, because in the end, they didn't just try to take my money. They tried to take my name, my character, my dignity, and I refused to let them. On the first cool evening of autumn, I sat alone by the fire, the crackle of wood filling the room. I thought about the years I'd given, the lies I'd swallowed, the empire I'd built. Laura had been right about one thing. I did believe she loved me. For a long time, I believed it with everything I had. But love isn't measured in laughter at dinner parties or anniversary cruises. It's measured in loyalty when the world turns dark. And in that test, she failed. Yet, Through it all, I discovered something stronger. Truth survives. Lies collapse. They tried to burn my life down. Instead, they burned themselves. The fountain still burbles in the driveway, though I considered tearing it down more than once. But now, I let it stand. Not as a monument to Laura's vanity, but as a reminder. A reminder that even the most beautiful structures can hide rot beneath the surface, and that sometimes you have to burn away the false foundations to find what's real. I built my business from concrete and steel, but what I've learned is this. The strongest foundation isn't money or houses or country clubs. It's dignity, it's truth, and that's something no one, not even the people closest to me, can ever take away again. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your feelings about this story in the comment section. Thank you. Keep watching the video on your screen.